If you think you've seen tense interviews before, wait until you hear what happened the moment Melania Trump stepped out from the shadows. What happened next stunned the entire studio, and the cameras caught every second of it. The studio looked calm at first. The lights were bright. The chairs were arranged perfectly. Everything felt controlled, clean, quiet. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett sat in her seat, confident, calm, ready. Her voice was steady. Her words were sharp but clear. She leaned forward slightly as she spoke, making sure every sentence carried weight. She spoke slowly, so everyone at home could understand. The truth is, she said, we cannot keep pretending that silence has no power. Some people have benefited from staying silent for years. And that silence has protected them. Her tone was steady. Her eyes were focused. The interviewer nodded, preparing to ask his next question. But before he could even open his mouth, a voice cut through the studio. A voice that did not belong to the interviewer. A voice that did not belong to the crew. A voice that brought everything to a complete halt. Excuse me. Stop right there. The words came from somewhere off camera, and they were sharp enough to slice through the air. Everyone froze. The interviewer's eyes widened. A camera operator lowered his hand. Someone in the control booth whispered, "Who was that?" Jasmine Crockett turned her head slightly, her eyes narrowing, not in fear, but in focus. The sound curtains behind the main set shifted. Footsteps echoed on the studio floor. Heels. Slow. Precise. Unrushed. And then the figure appeared. Melania Trump stepped into view. She wore a white pantsuit that almost glowed under the lights. Her expression was calm, collected, almost unreadable, but there was something tight in her jaw. Something held back. Something burning quietly beneath her composure. The studio went silent. No one expected this. No one planned for this. This was not on the schedule. The interviewer cleared his throat. Mrs. Trump, you're not scheduled to be here today. Melania moved closer. No, she said. I am not. But I heard something I could not ignore. Her voice was soft, but firm. Controlled. Measured. Jasmine slowly turned her chair to face her completely. She stayed calm. But her body stiffened slightly, like she was preparing for something. And what comment was that? Jasmine asked. Melania clasped her hands lightly in front of her. You said silence protects power, Melania replied. And you suggested that people like me benefited from silence. That is unfair. The studio fell into complete stillness. You could hear the quiet buzz of the lights. You could hear the faint hum of the cameras. But no one in the room dared to move. Jasmine spoke gently, but her message hit hard. What I said, she replied, was about systems. About how silence can be used as a tool by people who have a platform others could only dream of. Melania shook her head. You speak as if I chose silence. As if I chose comfort. You don't know what I chose. You don't know what I sacrificed. Jasmine leaned forward just slightly. Maybe I don't know, she said. But I do know this, when someone stands beside the most powerful man in the world, and they say nothing while families are separated and women are insulted, then silence does become a choice. Melania looked almost stunned for a moment. Not angry. Not offended. Just, surprised by the directness. She wasn't used to being spoken to like this. Not on camera. Not in public. Not face to face. The interviewer tried to break the tension. Ladies, perhaps we can. Jasmine lifted a hand. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't shout. She simply raised her hand. I'm not going to be spoken over today, she said. Not by a man. Not by anyone. And certainly not by you, Mrs. Trump. A wave of shock moved through the crew. Even Melania blinked. I didn't come here to argue, Melania said. I came because what you said was unfair. Jasmine gave a faint, unimpressed smile. Unfair? That's an interesting word coming from someone who stood in one of the most privileged positions on earth and said almost nothing for 4 years. I spoke when it mattered, Melania replied. Jasmine tilted her head slightly. Really? Was the time not right when families were torn apart at the border? Or when women were mocked on national television? Or when entire communities were insulted? How many right moments passed by? The silence that followed was heavy. Dense. Unavoidable. Melania clasped her hands tighter. You don't know what I went through, she said. I was attacked no matter what I did. People mocked my accent. They judged my past. They judged everything about me. Jasmine slowly stood. But when you have a platform that large, silence is not protection. Silence becomes participation. The room held its breath. Melania stood too. Now they were face to face. 2 feet apart. But worlds apart. You talk about noise, Melania said. But sometimes noise is just yelling. People shout so much that no one listens. No, Jasmine said firmly. People shout because they've been ignored for too long. We don't have the privilege to wait for the perfect moment. We speak or we disappear. Melania looked toward the crew, as if searching for someone to step in. No one moved. No one breathed. She was on her own. I didn't come here to be attacked, Melania said. And I didn't come here to be interrupted, Jasmine replied. But here we are. It wasn't loud. It wasn't chaotic. It was calm, sharp confrontation. The kind that changes a room. Jasmine spoke again, her voice softer now, but stronger than before. I represent people who don't get to walk into rooms like this without being questioned, judged, or dismissed. So when you walk in to defend your silence, you're not just talking to me. You're talking to millions of people who have been told they're too loud for telling the truth. Melania didn't respond. For the first time, she looked unsettled. Jasmine slowly sat down again, turning back toward the host. Now, she said calmly, we can continue the interview. Unless Mrs. Trump would like to answer the question I was addressing. The interviewer blinked rapidly. He had no idea how to continue. Melania didn't leave the set. She didn't walk away. She stood quietly, absorbing everything. Something inside her had shifted. It was visible. Her posture was still elegant. Her clothes were still perfect. But something in her expression had changed. Jasmine had drawn a boundary. And Melania had stepped across it without realizing what awaited her on the other side. Melania opened her mouth slowly. I don't think you understand, she said. But Jasmine lifted her eyes and looked at her with a focus so sharp and so calm that the entire studio felt it. And then, something happened that no one expected. Melania opened her mouth slowly, and the studio seemed to lean toward her, waiting. Her voice came out quieter than anyone expected. I don't think you understand what silence cost me, she said. Jasmine didn't answer. She waited. She watched. She kept her posture calm, unmoving, steady, like she had rehearsed for moments like this her whole life. But Melania, she was unraveling slowly, layer by layer, in front of the cameras. The host shifted nervously. The crew exchanged looks. Nobody had any idea where this was going, but nobody dared to stop it either. Melania took another step forward, her heels clicking softly on the floor. When you say I chose silence, she said, you make it sound simple. You make it sound like I just decided not to speak. But it was never that simple. Jasmine raised an eyebrow, just slightly. Go on, she said. Melania took a breath. A long, heavy breath. The kind that comes from somewhere deep inside. You think I was silent because I didn't care, Melania continued. But you don't know how many times I wanted to speak. How many nights I stayed awake thinking about what I should say. You don't know the price I paid. Jasmine's voice stayed steady. And what price was that? Melania looked at her. Not angry. Not defensive. Just tired. The price, she said softly, was myself. The room tightened. Nobody moved. Melania's voice didn't shake, but it softened. You see me as someone who lived in privilege, she said. But you don't know the pressure. You don't know the expectations. You don't know the fear of making one wrong move and watching the whole world attack you. Jasmine leaned forward. I know pressure, she said quietly. But pressure isn't the same as silence. Pressure doesn't force you to turn away from injustice. Melania blinked. Her eyes flickered, almost like a crack forming in glass. I didn't turn away, Melania whispered. I just didn't know how to speak. I was raised to be quiet. I was raised to keep peace. My whole life, I learned that silence keeps you safe. Jasmine shook her head gently. Safety for one person often means danger for many others, she said. Melania stepped closer again. She was now only a few feet away from Jasmine. You don't know what it felt like, Melania said, to have the entire world judge you before you even opened your mouth. Jasmine didn't smile. She didn't soften. People judge me before I enter a room, she replied. People judge me for my hair, my voice, my skin. But I still speak. Because if I don't speak, someone else pays the price. Melania lowered her gaze. I know, she said. I see that now. A long pause followed. Not empty. Not hollow. A pause filled with years of tension, misunderstanding, and unspoken truths. The host swallowed, unsure if he should intervene. But he didn't. Because for the first time, the audience watching at home wasn't watching a debate. They were watching two women from two different worlds finally meet in the same moment. Melania lifted her head. You said silence becomes participation, she said. And maybe you're right. Jasmine nodded slowly. It's not about blame, she replied. It's about responsibility. Melania shifted her weight. And what if I want to change, she asked quietly. Jasmine blinked. What if, Melania continued, I want to speak now? What if I want to do better? The studio inhaled as one. Even the camera lights seemed brighter, waiting. Jasmine didn't answer right away. She stood up slowly, facing Melania completely. If you want to do better, Jasmine said, then start by telling the truth. Not to protect anyone. Not to fix an image. Not for an audience. Just, truth. Melania swallowed. What truth? She asked. Jasmine took one step forward. The truth you never said, she replied. The truth you carried all those years. The truth that stayed inside you while the world watched. Melania pressed her lips together, holding something in. Say it, Jasmine said softly. Say the truth you were afraid to say. Melania looked down at the floor. Then at her hands. Then back at Jasmine. And then, very slowly, she spoke. I was scared, Melania said. I was scared all the time. Scared of saying the wrong thing. Scared of making things worse. Scared of what would happen if I spoke the truth. Jasmine exhaled, not in frustration, but in recognition. Fear is real, she said. Fear is powerful. But fear cannot silence you when other people's lives are at stake. Melania nodded slowly. I know, she whispered. I know that now. Jasmine moved a little closer. So tell the truth, she said again. Melania hesitated. Her fingers trembled just enough for the camera to catch it. I regret my silence, Melania said finally. I regret not saying more. I regret not stepping forward sooner. I regret not using my voice. Jasmine's expression softened just a hint. "Thank you," she said. But Melania wasn't done. "And I regret something else," she added. Her voice lowered. "Something I have never said before." The room froze. Even Jasmine felt the shift. "What is it?" Jasmine asked gently. Melania took a slow breath. "I regret the things I defended," she whispered. The room shook without sound. Jasmine looked at her, almost stunned. "Not because of politics. But because of honesty." "Say more," Jasmine told her. Melania closed her eyes for a second. "I regret the moments I pretended not to see harm," she said. "I regret the moments when I believed staying quiet was better than speaking out." Jasmine nodded once. "That is the start," she said. Melania's voice cracked slightly. "I didn't want to hurt anyone," she said. "I didn't want families separated. I didn't want people mocked. I didn't want any of that." Jasmine's voice softened even more. "Then why didn't you speak?" she asked. Melania opened her eyes. "Because I felt trapped," she said. "Trapped between who I was, and who I was expected to be." Jasmine understood that feeling deeply. Her expression showed it. "Many women feel that way," Jasmine said. "But the ones who break free change the world." Melania looked at her with a fragile hope. "Can I still change?" she asked. Jasmine paused. "Change doesn't happen in a day," she replied. "It happens with one decision. And then another. And another." Melania nodded slowly. "I want to try," she said. Jasmine stepped even closer, her voice calm but strong. "Then start right now," she said. "Start by telling the world something real. Something honest. Something human." Melania inhaled deeply. She began. But her voice faded. Her hands trembled again. She looked at the cameras, then at the host, then at Jasmine. "I don't know how," she said. "I don't know what to say." Jasmine's tone softened into something almost guiding. "Then start with what hurt you," she said. "Start with what you hid. Start with what you carried inside." Melania nodded faintly. And then she spoke. "I carried shame," she said quietly. The entire room held its breath. Jasmine stepped closer. "What shame?" she asked. Melania looked straight at her. "The shame of knowing people were hurting," she said, "and feeling powerless to stop it." This time, Jasmine didn't hide the shift in her expression. For the first time, Melania wasn't defending herself. She wasn't posing. She wasn't deflecting. She was confessing. And Jasmine knew it. The host sat frozen, unable to speak. The crew stood motionless. The country watched in stunned silence. Melania's voice softened again. "I don't want to be silent anymore," she said. "I want to tell the truth. Even if it hurts me." Jasmine nodded, but her eyes stayed locked on Melania's. "Truth always hurts at first," she said. "But silence hurts forever." Melania swallowed. "What do I say now?" she asked. And Jasmine leaned in closer, her voice calm, clear, and unshakably direct. "You say what you were never allowed to say before." Melania stared at her. "I don't know if I can," she whispered. "You can," Jasmine replied. "You just need to take one more step." Melania hesitated. The studio lights hummed around them. The cameras captured every breath. Every tremble. Every second of the moment. And then Melania opened her mouth again. But this time, her voice was about to reveal something no one in the room expected. Something she had never said publicly. Something that would change everything. And as she prepared to speak, the entire studio leaned forward, waiting. Because her next sentence would shock everyone. Melania looked at Jasmine. Her eyes were soft. Her voice was tired. And she finally said the words everyone had been waiting for. I stayed silent, because I didn't know who would protect me if I spoke. The entire studio fell into absolute stillness. Not one person moved. Not one breath broke the silence. Even the cameras felt frozen in time. Jasmine stepped closer. She didn't shout. She didn't criticize. She simply said, "Then hear this now. When truth matters, you protect yourself by speaking. Not by hiding." Melania nodded slowly. Tears touched the corners of her eyes, but she held them back. She wasn't weak. She wasn't defeated. She was simply honest. And for the first time, the room didn't see her as a former First Lady. For a moment, they saw her as a woman finally letting herself be seen. Jasmine stepped back, letting the weight of the moment settle. The host finally spoke. "This," he said softly, "was not the interview we planned. But it is one we will never forget." The studio lights dimmed slightly. Crew members slowly began to move again. The world outside kept spinning. But something in that room had changed. Two women. Two very different lives. One unforgettable moment. Jasmine returned to her seat calmly. Melania took a deep breath, then stepped back, giving space, giving respect. And as the cameras zoomed out, the viewers everywhere understood. This was not just an interview. It was a reckoning. A release. A moment of truth between two women who never expected to meet in such a way. The host raised his hand toward the camera, giving the final cue. And the screen slowly faded to black. If this moment gave you chills, if this conversation made you think, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Tap the like button. Drop a comment. And share this video with someone who needs to hear the truth today. Thank you for watching. Stay safe. Stay strong. And I'll see you in the next story.